Good morning. Welcome again to Morning Devotions, and thank you again so much for our time together. Each day this week, I want to talk to you about the Christmas story. I want to talk to you about the greatest story ever told, that God gave His only begotten Son, for God so loved the world. Now, what I want to talk to you about today, again, goes back to Jesus' mother and father. Yesterday, I talked to you about how a righteous man handles problems in relationships. Today, I want to talk to you about how a righteous man treats his wife. Beginning in chapter 1, verse 24. When Joseph woke up, he did what the angel of the Lord had commanded him, and he took Mary home as his wife. But he had no union with her until she gave birth to a son, and he gave him the name Jesus. Now, a righteous man not only obeys God, a righteous man has self-control. We live in a world where premarital sex has become normal. I was reading recently about Tim Tebow being mocked and made fun of in the press because he refused to have sex with a beauty queen girlfriend, and people thought he was absolutely crazy. I stand back and say, what an example for all the young men in the church today. What an example for young men. Here is a guy who wants to do right, a guy who wants to live right. He's going to make a great husband one day. He will always be faithful. But we live in a world where premarital sex is normal. I'd like you to notice the mother of Jesus and the father of Jesus. They were normal people just like me and you. And once she was pregnant, he could have figured, what's the harm, man? I mean, she's already pregnant. We won't get caught. He didn't live right because of the fear of getting caught. He lived right because it was the right thing to do. Now, let me say that again. He didn't live right because of a fear of getting caught. He lived right because it was the right thing to do. So he didn't have premarital sex with her. But then, because the angel said not to have sex with her until she gave birth to a son, he exercised self-control. And for how many months did he forego the sexual privileges of marriage? For how many months did he control his own desires in obedience to God until that child was born? I sat down with a man one day in counseling, and please remember, I always change my illustrations because no one would ever know who I'm talking about. But many years ago, I sat down with this man, and his wife was pregnant, and he'd committed adultery. And I said, why did you do it? He said, well, he said, I just needed some. I said, needed some what? He said, you know. I said, you mean you couldn't even control yourself for a few months while your wife was pregnant? You couldn't control yourself that long? And I took him back to this story and showed him how Joseph had controlled himself. A righteous man has self-control. Gentlemen, there will be times when you can't have sex with your wife. Maybe in sickness, maybe in pregnancy. A righteous man controls himself. He's not controlled by his hormones, and he's not controlled by his desires. Be a righteous man like Joseph. He lived in self-control.